We have with us Srikanth Rajagopalan, who is the CEO of Perfume's Aggregation Services Private Limited. He's got a great background of AWS behind him. So he comes from the financial sector and a technology background, and a background which is like talking big. So it's like not talking about, okay, let's do this. It's like, let's do this 100x, 10x. And I have shared with him certain things in the past when I realized that what their organization talks, like what Amazon speaks, they actually mean it, or what a Google speaks. So that's where we'll make a big difference with Anumati also in place, and of course challenges being faced. We'll discuss on all those things and how we can create digital excellence. Thank you, Shrikant, for accepting this request and coming for this interview.
Thank you, Ganesh, for having me, and thanks for that super impressive introduction, part of which I think I might deserve at some point.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So first of all, Shrikant, we'll start with you would agree that our BFSI sector is getting digitized, and of course, a lot of things are happening. Okay. Our KYC is fairly digital, we can say. Our payment systems are no doubts the best in the world with the UPI, etc. just come up. The 24 hours payment systems, settlement systems on the SEBI front, etc. But I still believe that I'm a person who wants to talk about excellence, not things. Things are done, it's fine. So when you talk about excellence, we still have a lot more to do. So I believe that we still don't have an end-to-end digital processing in our banking, healthcare, and insurance sectors. So what do you think are the general hurdles, and where do you see it moving? I don't expect 100% to be done, but how can we go further? The basic to start with.
Good. I mean, that's a wonderfully open-ended question and gives me some leeway to answer in 2 or 3 ways, Ganesh. One is, I think, whenever some of these what ifs and considerations come up, it's important and helpful to start with the customer, the end customer, right? Everything else should follow and become a means to that end. Right? As far as I've experienced serving customers in India, we trust people more than we trust screens or devices or any of those things. Except, of course, when it is for things like, downloading content and all that kind of stuff. I'm not getting into trivial stuff there. But when it comes to a transaction which has some risk, whether it's a payment risk or a fulfillment risk or something like that, apart from the digitally very savvy, if you have to make an impact at scale, we have to respect the customer's choice of saying, I trust a representative, I trust a human, right? Not just, some piece of technology or code or some app out there. Right? So I think that's the first thing that should decide all our, should inform all our decision making. Then you ask the question, okay, let's say Ganesh is a representative of, I'm just taking names here, HDFC Bank, right? I'm an applicant for a financial product. I don't want to, or I can't, or I don't know how to interact digitally with HDFC Bank. So Ganesh is here to help me. How do I make sure that Ganesh is telling the truth, right? Taking the right information that is necessary and nothing more. And that Ganesh is productive when it comes to his role with HDFC Bank. To me, that is where we will make impact at scale from a digitization perspective, rather than assuming that a straight through, no human intervention is the right way to go, at least for the short to medium term, right? So my view is always that any digitization initiative, any technological marvel that we come across has to end up making that human interaction more productive and trusted. If we achieve that, excellence will follow.
Super. I think that's a great way, and probably that's where the name Anumati says. Anumati is the consent, or
Exactly.
they got Sahamati somewhere, where again saying that he boss, I concur with you. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think that will also give a lot of comfort to people who believe AI is going to take away their jobs. When we say that excellence comes through human beings,
Correct.
it's a nice way to start, and impressive way. We can thank you. Now it takes back me to 2018 when I first met you during your Amazon days. Okay. And I remember we were having a discussion, and you were talking about the Alexa thing or the Siri or the OK Google thing that is going to voice is going to be the change. And I said, eh, but how can voice really change the transaction? Because probably that time we were thinking it's only a speaker who's going to talk about it instead of a text. So I remember you saying, no, no, it's going to be much beyond. And at that time, you told me, you asked me, do you watch movies? I said a lot of Bollywood movies and Hollywood movies. And you said that you start watching them more on OTT. And of course, we had OTT at that point of time. And you said that movies are going to first release over there. Trust me, Srikanth, I did not believe in it. And I remember slightly arguing with you. I didn't go on a negative argument mode, but I started questioning you. And you said that that is going to be the way of life. Entertainment landscape is going to change. Okay. And it did. Maybe COVID helped it accelerate, but it did. And today, probably people are okay waiting for a movie to be released on an Prime or a Hotstar or a Netflix. They say that theater में जाना जरूरी नहीं. So theater is a different world now. We want to see a Pushpa 2 in a theater or a Bahubali for some other effect. So that's where probably your vision was at that point of time, and you told this is thing. Now, do you think our BFSI landscape will also undergo such a major transformation? I'm not talking about step by step. चलो digital हो गया, ये हो गया. Do you think that we'll have a major transformation on this thing where we say 100% paperless, 100%? I'm not saying human touch point is not there, but for a customer, it's a seamless journey. Okay. And when I talk about it, I'm talking about complex insurance products. Okay, high value health product. Uh, I'll give you a background. When I talk this, I always talk to most of the people saying, boss, ask me when I open a current account with the best of banks in India. It's a frustrating process. 100 pages, they'll ask me to take a printout. And if since I'm a wealth customer, I'm lucky, he takes a printout. That means I email it to him the MCA documents. No great deal. I have got a mail from MCA. I forward it to him. He prints it out, comes to my house or my office, asks me to use my office ka rubber stamp, okay, which he only does it. Okay, the great RM with a with significant position, he does all the stamping. He will ask me to sign it 100 times. And then he will go to the ops guy. The ops guy will again scan it for his operational purpose. What nonsense. You got a digital product from a source which I gave you. You printed it, made it paper. You made me authenticate MCA documents, which you don't want to believe. And then you stand it again because you want to work on your workflow systems. I never understood this process. We already have lots of APIs to do this. And the best part is all the banks, all the insurance companies have got APIs with them. Okay. So with that background, I'm asking you, really can we have an end-to-end digital process? And how do you see it?
Uh, I don't think the answer will be binary, Ganesh. The answer will be it depends, right? Um, by that answer, I'm also buying myself insurance policy of looking stupid, right? But but here's my considered point of view. There will always be workflows, processes, products which are resistant to change, not from a technology perspective, but from a sheer human behavior perspective, right? There is no incentive for that RM to go and tell his ops manager, why can't you simply give me a button on my iPad or whatever device that I have, where I can press and get this job done. Right? There is no incentive for that operations manager to automate things to such an extent that he no longer has 1,000% team and that ego that goes with it, right? So you have to get to the second level of questioning. See, what is the incentive either for change or for inertia? Usually you'll find in most of these cases, the inertia outweighs the need for change or the incentive for change, right? I think the answer partly lies in three or four things that we need to try. Even let's say, I'll give you a classic case of what we tried as Anumati, right? Uh, Largest bank, the most complex of IT systems, most ingrained processes and operating, ways of working and all that kind of stuff. Systemically important bank as notified by the RBI. So therefore, a lot more risk aversion, right? You would think that this is one of the worst places you can try an innovation, correct? Everything, everything should be a red flag over there. However,
True.
what we did was to carve out a specific product and distribution channel called the PM Swanidhi scheme. Right? This is one of those central DBTs where the central government guarantees a certain X rupees of credit per month for a street vendor, right? No collateral, no documentation. Just supply your bank account information, your profile information, your cash flow for the last few months, and a loan is disbursed, right? What we found is that this manual process was really hurting the salespeople, right? The bank has a target of disbursing so much of PM Swamidhi loans. But then when you're a company, and these insights don't come to you sitting in an office like this, right? You actually have to walk the streets with the sales guys. And they will tell you, ki boss, these street vendors will come to life only after 5 p.m. near a mall, right? वो चने बेचने वाले, छोटे soft toys बेचने वाले, fluffy candy बेचने वाले, right? These are guys who are extremely seasonal, even within the day, right? And they will then in the morning time, in the afternoon time, they are interacting with their vendors and trying to negotiate a credit line and all that kind of stuff. So first, findability. Second is in that time, if you go and attack them after 5 o'clock in the evening, he won't have time to talk to you. Bank statement leke aao and all that stuff, right? Because for him, time is money.
Correct.
So then we figured out that the real pain point is once you explain the product to the customer, fulfillment is a big pain point, not findability, right? So what we did was in hindsight, it was stupidly simple. All we did is in that RM's tab, right? There is this thing saying onboard vendor one for PM Swanidhi. The next pop-up is get 6 months bank statement. कहाँ जाएगा बेचारा, right? Who comes to work with a 6 months bank statement in his pocket? All we did was to insert an account aggregator floor over there, right? We said, okay, Mr. RM, to ek kaam kar, you just enter that fellow's mobile number and he will get a consent request on his phone. He can link his bank account. Within 5 minutes, you can finish the transaction. All you have to do is negotiate for 5 minutes of his time. So ye kar sakta hai kya? Bola, हाँ boss कर लेंगे. Right? And then one thing led to another and all that kind of stuff. So then once the sales guy started getting confidence, this thing works. It saves me time. I can actually disperse 10 loans in one day rather than 2. Then that goes upwards, right? So you have to pick those low-hanging fruits, those workflows which are painful with the status quo, but can transform with a little bit of intervention, right? So my point is this, that I don't think you will ever get to a point where at an enterprise level, across products, across channels, across customer segments, it will be completely paperless. I think that is hoping for too much. But within that, if you apply a filter of either customer segments which are digitally savvy or workflows which are today very painful, like what I described, but which if you digitize can actually transform in terms of productivity and effectiveness. And you're able to work with operations folks who understand that data coming in straight digital is actually much easier to archive and retrieve, rather than, like you said, scan, then digitize and then store, right? So no magic bullet finish. This digitization, the extent of it, the nature of it will be very dependent on each enterprise and each use case and each channel.
And each function knowing what's in it for me.
100%. If you don't answer what's in it for me, then there'll be at least 5 stakeholders in this flow that I talked about. Right? Every one of these 5 has the power to say no. No one guy has the power to say yes.
That's a nice one. No one guy has the power to say yes. I think that's a big problem. And easiest way to say no, the smallest guy in the loop just hangs his boot and says, "What's the problem?"
One
And
ये
now,
problem है, ये समझ में नहीं आता, right? So It's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's this project that I described to you took months of effort, right? Took months of actually route riding with these guys on their bikes and figuring out their journey plans. I kid you not. I mean, that's the extent to which people had to go to figure out the workflow, right? Um, so I think when you ask that question of can we digitize everything, right? The question you need to ask the mirror is, are you willing to go to that extent of understanding and empathizing with your customers before you hope for digitization?
Customer first.
Customer
Yes,
first.
exactly. So that actually takes me to my favorite question. Uh, Most of the digitalization which I've seen, okay, it's always about improving the operational costing, okay, improving the operational processes of the company. Okay, हमारा ये improve हो गया, we have cut down 2 steps. But did it really impact the customer? Probably we may want to believe yes. Okay, we have made customer onboarding journey easy, but we have made his life difficult, right? So that is one way. And you come from Amazon, where I have one of the best things when I give examples is that Amazon is probably the only customer service area in today's world where I'm able to reach the customer care department. Okay, so I like Amazon's statement to be the best customer service center in the world on the earth. Okay,
Earth's most customer obsessed company.
it's true, but it's seen. So first of all, in the digitization process, you can realize that they try to cut down all questions as far as possible because I'm giving a solution. But फिर भी नहीं हुआ. Do you want to reach us? You say yes. They will not ask the customer to reach. Within 60 seconds, they reach the customer. That's the beauty. And trust me, I have had experiences. I remember someone telling me in one of the recent interviews that you are a very literate customer or probably an exceptional customer. And maybe somebody want to say a fussy customer. Okay. So basically, I may not form an exception, okay, technically, but probably I am a part of the universe is questioning, which many people will not want to answer or like it. But then, if this customer gets a call back at 3 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock, 4:30 early morning, I get all these things and I get a response and I get a solution. It impresses. Okay, whereas in today's bot world, I am not able to reach anyone. I'll give an example. I got an SBI card in which there is some 300 rupees credit. For the past 2 years, I've been getting an SMS 2 or 3 times an SMS every week, every month, which says the card ending with last 4 digits has got 300 rupees in its credit. Please contact us for the toll free number is given to do the needful. It's in that unclaimed amount, I know. I am not able to reach. The reason is the card is old. I don't have the first other 12 digits of the card. And I have got my email is registered email is with me, my phone is with me. And after doing a 3 minutes, 4 minutes jugglery over the great the so-called bots and IVRs, I end up getting your call is now getting disconnected. I cannot reach them. There's no way I can talk to a human being who can help me saying that boss, naam hai mera CRM se dhoond. I can't talk to them. So this is the when you use the word empathize with the customer and try to understand. So how do you see customer service in the coming days with so much of digitization, companies leveraging and companies investing crores in customer service? That's the best part of it. No company is saying, okay, customer gaya baad mein, customer kasse mare. Everybody says customer is the king, and we want to give a wow factor, customer delight, customer satisfaction. All the great words are being used, but somehow it's not reaching. So how do you think we can reach that? We can actually make the customer journey simpler when we say customer, okay, because my mom today is scared of banks. She's a wealth customer with 4 banks. She's 80. She just celebrated 80th birthday. She's scared of banks because she says, I don't know how to reach them. The RM doesn't anywhere come to my house. For everything they say, mobile mein app mein karo. So are we expecting the customer should be so digitally savvy that he cannot talk?
First of all, happy birthday to your mother. Give her a big hug from me.
Thank you.
80 is such a milestone.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think it ultimately, um, let's start with a meta statement. Humans don't listen to logic, they respond to incentives.
Lovely.
Okay. And that human is usually the CXO of one of these large organizations that you named. And their incentives are all financial metrics. The street or an investor, if you're a private company, measures you on hard metrics. What are these hard metrics? Financial, operational, business, so on and so forth. Go through any investor report, right? And show me one metric that is a voice of the customer. Let's start there. Any listed company, I challenge you. आप private को तो बात छोड़ो because things are different. Any listed company anywhere on the planet, show me one hard metric that shareholders can look at, which is the voice of the customer, right? So I think fundamentally, if at the C-suite, your incentives are misaligned, no amount of good intent will get you anywhere,
Very hard statement, but true statement.
right? So the tough part of it is to find a universally acceptable metric that says this is the health of a customer experience because it's so diverse, it's so contextual, it is so uh, forget across markets, even between Bengal and Bangalore, the customer expectation and metric is very different, right? So it's very hard to quantify that, right? So I think there are very few organizations, and Amazon is one I'm really proud about, which manage this dichotomy by making it part of the culture. And that's the hard thing, right? We've been in situations where um, we know that there is something wrong about this return. But more, what is a higher order priority for us is to say, hey, we made a promise to the customer, no questions asked refund. We'll figure out uh, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, the details later. First issue a refund, then investigate the case.
Wow.
Right? That takes some guts. That takes some guts from leadership to say that even though I know this doesn't appeal to common sense, we made a higher order commitment to our customer. Right? So uh, unless there are organizations which put that level of sustained, consistent, and universal effort to make customer experience a cultural priority, right? I think this is going to be a little hard for this thing, right? The only other organization that comes so close to being anal about the customer experience is, I think, maybe the Taj hotels, right? No matter which property you get into, no matter where there's this thing, right? And I've seen this personally. I mean, I used to travel a heck of a lot once in a while, some time back, right? Second time, third time, I walk into a hotel, within the same 2 or 3 months. The doorman wishes me by name,
Yeah.
right? There's something about the culture there, right? Nobody told him to, nobody put it into his standard operating procedure. It's cultural.
That's nice. Customer service is culture, not a process.
100%. 100%. I can debate this at length with anybody who wants to, who has a different point of view. That ultimately it is a cultural element, and everything else follows from there.
So we leave this as a question mark because I think you made a big point. I think KRAs play a big role. Incentivization, KRAs, and whose priority is what, and how do we define a culture? So We agree to it. Probably that's where excellence will come with only those people who really walk that extra mile for that customer who really see. Great.
Excellence. What is
Come.
excellence? It's an output of a good culture.
Yeah. Great. So I always thought excellence is a habit. Output of a good culture is a nice input for me. Thanks, Srikanth, for this. Uh, Coming to your Anumati days now, as an account aggregators are in place. There are quite a few of them in the country, and you're tied up with the banks, with the insurance companies, but somehow it's not picking up on both the sides, and insurance is much lower, I know, and everybody signed the contract, integrations are in place. Okay, they are unable to use it for whatever good reasons, and customers also not comfortable. So, where do you think the challenges are on the user front, like customer and the banks or insurance, and where are the challenges at your end, and how do we see moving ahead in this?
It's a very open-ended question, Ganesh. First of all, I think um, without getting into specific numbers, some facts, right?
Yeah,
And I can talk about Anumati's number, specific experience. We got our license in November 21, and we 22, 23 was um, a first full year of operations, right? So just for context, if you take X as our metric is very simple: number of data fetches from one institution to the other, right? As of now, it's a very simple business. We'll add layers as we go along, but right now it's very simplistic. If you take X is what we did in the first full year of 22, 23. Okay. We did 12X in 23, 24, right? And we're doing 10X last week. Okay. Just to give you a sense of where for various reasons, I can't reveal the exact number,
fair, fair.
right? So where we started to where we are, we're about 55X scale within about 20 months time. Correct? Just in terms of data velocity flowing through just one account aggregator. We have no claims to be the biggest, best, and all that kind of stuff. We are one of 19 licensees in the market, and this is
True.
our metric. So what we see is happening is there are these early movers. Can I use parlance like FIP, FIU? Is it okay?
Yeah,
Okay. So what we've learned is, you know, getting to FIPs one by one has been a challenge on both sides, right? Because for me to ensure that when a customer uses an AA, there is a high chance that she finds her account. I have to sign up at least 30, 40 banks, correct? I
correct.
mean, everybody understands the top 10, but the next 20, 30 are quite eye-opening, right?
Yeah,
So that has taken us about 6 to 8 months to get together, right? Till then, we're just building stuff. And on the demand side, which is the FIU, we have to find the right organizations which have a combination of bandwidth, the desire to innovate, right? And the ability to execute and innovate and improve over a time. I mean, it's very easy for somebody to start a project, run it for 3 months, they say, "Hey, hua nahi isko band kar," right? Fortunately, we've got some fantastic partnerships on the FIU side who are patient over the long term and saying, "Okay, this didn't work, that didn't work. Let's try this, let's try that," and so on and so forth. Right? Now we're at a stage where what we're hearing from one, at least three very large banks is that AA adoption is a CEO mandate. It's no longer just a digitization initiative. It's no longer just a, you know, innovation agenda packaged suitably and talked about from a stage, right? Those days are gone, right?
great.
It is now being tracked as a metric at the CEO's office, right? And there is a reason to that. The big thing that is going to shift in the months to come is what is called the DPDPA.
Yeah,
Every large organization today is already working on paths to compliance. And what they realize is that in the financial world, the surest path is A, right? It's a regulated framework. The account aggregators are regulated entities, so there is a comfort there. And because we are data blind, there is no conflict. कि अच्छा ये मेरा customer लेके जाएगा किसी और का बेचेगा,
Correct.
right? There are, of course, business consequences of being such a limited, consent manager and a dumb data pipe. But it opens up a lot more that you can do with your customers because they trust you, right? This guy doesn't have data. This guy doesn't have PII. So I can push him
Correct.
to work harder for me without a fear of saying वो कल जाके customer लेके जाएगा किसी और का product बेचेगा. So that trust building has already been done, right?
Super.
Where challenges exist is operation, right? In any ecosystem, if you see, there are regulatory, structural, and operational, right? By operational, I'm combining the operational and the technical bit part. The regulatory bit we sorted out, and you know, any forum I put a salam to our RBI for being bold enough to stitch together four regulators in one framework. Let's pause a moment to appreciate the enormity of the task that they have pulled off, right? Where four very powerful regulators have come together, set aside their independent agendas, and work towards an ecosystem bigger than themselves. No other country on the planet has done this. They've
True.
always been in this, pulling a gun against each other, right? So I think that was an eye opener. I mean, that tells the industry something that these guys are serious about it. It might take 3 years, it might take 5 years, it might take 10 years, but they're serious about it, right? Second is um, we have a loosely federated architecture under Sahamati. By that I mean there is no central switch like an NPCI which interconnects all of them, right? And
Correct.
that is by design, right? Because there are while there are operational benefits, there are strategic downsides to having a central switch, right?
Hmm.
So I think we've stayed away from um, that mindset of a switch or a network, which is like at the heart of everything. Right? Um, what that unfortunately means is, excuse me, interoperability becomes a little harder to establish. It takes
Correct.
time. So I think one of the fundamental problems that we're now learning to solve is there a middle path solution which does not introduce a central switch, but still ensures interoperability? Right. The closest analogy is I can think of is the Bluetooth expert forum. Right. You you have this pair of earphones. You have some other device. You're not bothered how it works. You press the button. You discover. You pair it once. It works. Correct. That pairing is basically that authentication and onboarding of the device by the other device, by the child device, by the parent device. That's a kind of peering that we're working on now. Right? It's a little more complicated from what I'm trying to simplify. But if you
Yeah.
um, imagine if all your Bluetooth devices had to talk to one IP server, which was a switching device, right? It never work, right? So
True.
that's the kind of peering that we're trying to establish at a kind of a federated level, which establishes a level playing field, right?
But
So that customers
yeah.
can have either an Anumati handle or a FinView handle or I don't know a CAMS account aggregator handle. It will work just as well with every bank. And there should be no, how should I say, denial of service because of that. Right? So that's one fundamental issue we think we know how to handle. We're hard at work at a Sahamati level to get that. And it's a cooperative effort. Right? The second thing I think we need to be very careful about is and you and I have seen this multiple times over in different industries like payments, insurance, so on and so forth, is when you remove friction in a process, you get exponential adoption. But with exponential adoption, you also get the bad guys, right? No system is perfect. Um, and you will always have these, excuse me, edge cases where people try and game the system for their own benefit,
True.
right? So on the FIU side, we've now learned to put in place some controls, right? Some controls in terms of what's called fair use. You can't be simply pinging the system for data just because it's available, right? And trust me, we've seen these kind of behaviors, right? Kya jata
Bots.
hai, right? Bots or unnecessary, updation of balances and stuff. Yeah. So we put in place some controls over there. What is still work in progress is, I think, the business model for an account aggregator, right? Because what we've learned is, because of the regulatory guidelines on what an account aggregator can or cannot do, the path to monetization is still very, very shaky, right? So I think it is clear to us that at least for the next 2 to 3 years, you have to look at this as road building,
Mhm.
right? You're laying roads without any traffic or tolls and anything in the first 2 to 3 years, right? But if you take a decadal view, your toll commission will pay back for the initial investment.
Similar to probably NPCI, where the banks are actually taking the hit, right? To a great extent. So they are not getting money for the usage of UPI. It's customer convenience, and they're paying for it, which they are also waiting for monetization.
Actually, actually, you'll be surprised. I mean, the velocity at which CASA is entering the system today, cash flows are happening through CASA, through bank accounts, rather than being in cash, right?
Yeah.
UPI has actually brought down the cost of getting more deposits into an account.
Yes.
It's not been quantified, but if you ask any banker, they will admit grudgingly
Yeah.
that UPI say in bank
It's a,
balances are fatter, and the customer is leaving a digital footprint on which I can underwrite.
great.
So it's very likely that we'll discover the same thing in account aggregator, that we're simply laying the roads, make sure the road works, it is wide enough, it is safe enough, there are speed cameras, and SOS services and stuff like that. Typically, what your normal highway takes. But the people who will make your revenues, the value capture will probably happen with the dhabas and the Starbucks on the side, which is your lenders, excuse me, your insurance folks, who today have access to a lot more data, frictionless, authentic, right? Um, excuse me. Already we're hearing instances from lenders where they're saying that about 30 to 40% of what we're underwriting through AA is actually NTC, thin file or no file customers, right? All unsecured. And there is a temporary slowdown in unsecured lending now, but that is only temporary. Excuse me. Sorry, back.
Look, so great. So that takes me to the underwriting point of view. It's my specialization, you can say. So here you are also representing Perfius. So Perfius is working on the financial underwriting and medical underwriting part for insurance, and indirectly through AA, you are trying to help banks also in underwriting different ways. AA, and of course through the other OpenStack, India Stack APIs, etc. So how do you think the financial and medical underwriting will improve? Medical, of course, is still a challenge because of documentation, centralized documents, and financial is also not available fully. So how do you see the change? And I'd like to club one more question. Like India is predominantly, at least on paper, supposed to be 60% agricultural country, though the GDP nowhere reflects an agrarian economy, etc. for us. So, but then 60% of the people come from the agricultural revenue background, where we don't have any official records. They just come up with Form 60s and they say we don't pay income tax, which is a separate challenge altogether. And how do we underwrite these customers also? So we can club the answer like financial underwriting, including the agricultural patients of our customers and the medical underwriting part.
See, if you, uh, the way I interpret your question
Hmm,
is a data problem.
correct. It's a
Correct?
source problem. We can say, yeah.
It's do I have enough high quality, authentic data about that customer from various sources, right?
Correct.
Uh, to an extent, banking is kind of sorted, right? Because more or less banking data is now available through some channel or the other. It is fairly straightforward, standardized, and yes, some of the narration may be different in the bank statement between one bank and the other, but normally it's standardized, right? A debit is a debit, credit is a credit, interest charge is an interest charge, so on and so forth, right? I think the problem that we deal with in non-financial data is first the data is not standardized. You probably know this much better than I do, but for underwriting health insurance, if your incoming data on medical history, treatment history, so on and so forth is not standardized, there itself there is a bottleneck. Okay? So I think some of the efforts of I think the India Health Stack, I'm not completely clued into that, is trying to solve that data quality and standardization issue over there. Right? Then comes the problem of how do I use that data, which is where I think we have some hope with the DPDPA. If you look at the uh, policy guidelines or the Act guidelines, it has a very critical role for a consent manager to play, right? And we're hoping
Explicit.
and
That too explicit for every field.
informed consent, explicit informed consent for every field, right? So we're talking to Mikey through different channels and say that listen, um, you need a consent manager. This has already been tried and tested in the financial world, the most sensitive and the most highly regulated. It is working at scale. Can you let us play in the non-financial data? Of course, a lot more uh, capable and OCAT capable people will have to, make policy and regulatory decisions to make this happen. It's not as simple as it seems. But the pieces of the puzzle are there. There is a certain activity which is happening to standardize and aggregate data. There is a consent manager already at work at some place. How do you connect the dots? Right? Similarly, on agricultural data, I think there is some work happening through RBIH. I'm not sure you've chatted with them. You should, right? What RBIH is doing to say that, listen, precisely to your point, if I have to underwrite to a small farmer with less than 2 acres of holding and maybe two seasonal crops, how do I even assess his credit worthiness with a zero file, right? So what they've been able to, I believe, do is they've run a pilot in the KCC space, Kisan Credit Card space, where they now have pouring data digitized at the farmer collective level,
Oh,
right? So they say that okay, if this person is showing me a bank statement and she says he says he's a milkman, I can actually go to the cooperative where he claims to be a member and get his pouring data for the day and over the last so many days. And that becomes a great surrogate to cross map and do it. Similarly, there is work happening on digitizing landholding data, geospatial,
correct. Yeah.
right? And that is now, I think that long back we made the decision of making that data open source as public data with the right access controls. And the satellite mapping policy was brilliant in its simplicity. Up to a certain resolution is public. More resolution than that, you need permissions, right? So that data is now, I think, accessible. It's still not, of course, complete. There's a lot more
It's
that can be
working
improved.
slightly on the crop insurance side. They are working on it, of course.
Got it.
It's a challenge because that also throws up our inorganic way of farming. Like typically how it works is the geo satellite tells you कि ये 2 एकड़ लैंड है इसमें इतना गुंठा इतना क्विंटल का uh, whichever kharif crop or rabi crop can happen, and that's the maximum possible, but it is found that it is 10x of what it is done, which is not possible without a genetic farming, etc. So anyway, that's a separate
Correct.
problem, but
That's
good.
separate
So
problem,
it's
but at least the pieces of the puzzle are all there. They're getting solved in
yeah.
different silos. Where I think this excellence in digitization will happen to your core theme isn't really connecting the dots,
Yeah.
right? 5 years back, this discussion would have been a little more pessimistic, right? In saying that with digitally dark, we don't have enough data. We don't know what's happening from a agricultural productivity level or a GST level. All those data are there. There is no more place for a for a borrower or for an insuree to hide, right? That digital data is there, right? Excellence will be a matter of pulling all these together with the right privacy controls and respect for consent, pulling these together and figuring out the logic.
You spoke about the infrastructure piece where you said probably the speed cameras are needed and to control. So that
Yep.
my last question to you on the operational part basically is the risk management part of it. It was insurance industry is catch me if you can. Okay, and because the laws are not stringent, if I do a fraud, I lose nothing. क्या करेगा? Claim मत भरो. That's it. As an insurer, we could not file a police complaint because they say you did not lose anything. That means I had to really lose the amount to get. I cannot say that Srikanth is a thief. I caught him. The question is, did he steal from you? No. Forget it. The, that's a law part of it, which obviously we don't want to discuss over here. So with this background, people are not scared. Okay, क्या होगा maximum? So it's like there are many of my friends who say, I don't care, yeah, 2,000 rupees fine में दे देगा, but I enjoy driving at 150, 180. Okay. So there are people like that because the impact is not significant. So that is one part. And second part is the insurer can reject a claim only when he has information, and the information is with the insured, like with the customer, the family. So he has to say, "You give me the data that you are lying, and I will reject your claim." It's not easy. So this has been the situation for all of us. So we have lived our life 2 decades. निकाल दिया इसमें.
Yep.
So where do you think in the digital world we can? I'm sure nothing is going to be zero, but can we curb these frauds in some way? Is there anything which you would like to speak on?
See, big caveat is I have vanishingly zero expertise in the insurance world and the insurance claim fraud world. So please take everything that I say with a bowl full of salt.
No,
Right?
I want to talk purely from a digital point of view. Probably somewhere maybe we are not thinking. We are thinking big. So it's simple. It's also then the thing banking world. Nowadays, the number of digital arrest cases are coming, and with the best of learned professionals, right? The UPI scams which are happening. So that means the scams are bold. So is there a bit apart? We don't want to talk about the generic things like okay, training करेंगे, awareness करेंगे. That's fine. So something better which we can catch digitally. Something which you know or which is possible. Maybe we are not thought of
Just
using it.
asking, I mean, is there a similar repository like, let's say, the credit bureaus or fraud bureaus in the insurance industry? Is there an example?
Yes. Yeah, there is an IIB, Insurance Information Bureau of India, which is a subsidiary arm of the regulator IRDHN. Okay. Unfortunately, it took some time for them to come up with a repository where all policy details of all the insurance, life, health, everybody is contributing. But
Sure.
the big players like LIC don't contribute for whatever reasons they have. And about a year back, they had a major ransomware attack or whatever, so which is public, but not completely public of what exactly happened or what is the impact.
Understood.
But
Understood.
imagine. 40, 50 insurance companies losing data, and life insurance data is like my income, my health, my habits, my family details, my
Everything,
PAN, Aadhaar,
everything, everything.
everything is gone. So that's a seriousness. And of course, so now when the recently the regulator has come up saying that we have got a good framework in IIB, so they want insurance companies to tie up with IIB for this. So it's there, but it's a
But
challenge.
maybe that repository becomes, first of all, a repository of known fraud cases across the industry. Because where the banking industry was 20 years back is that you could stop paying a loan with one bank and still take a loan
Okay,
from somebody else. And the second bank wouldn't know that you're a defaulter with that bank, number one.
got it. You're saying let's start with a simple negative listing. So which I think many the Sibyl and the Experian all came up with the hunter systems and all, and it's a simpler way where nobody should have a challenge. It's already a lost books.
Exactly.
So, in
So
fact,
if you
Mr.
start with that,
Arvind Virmani, Dr. Arvind Virmani of Niti Ayog also said the same thing. Why don't you have a negative database to start with? Why are you blaming the government and all of us and all? So maybe it's right. So, simple way to start.
so basically, I think if you look at loss prevention, I mean, just like airlines will have no-fly lists, right? So this person has a negative behavior with one airline. People realize that the impact across airlines is going to be the same. Likewise in an industry. I mean, if somebody has defrauded one insurance company, it's very likely they'll try and hit somebody else. So um, these days, it is easy to identify an individual at an individual level, right? So maybe you start with a negative list of people who've tried to, have insurance defraud the insurer. And the second, and this is something I think where very good technological brains can bring in things like pattern recognition and generative AI solutions. Because what is Gen AI? It's nothing but pattern recognition and a prediction of what might come, right?
Correct.
So if you can first get the data together of who are the black sheep, excuse me, and have a pattern of what are the most um, frequent patterns of abuse. See, this data is all there. If the trouble is that the data is all there between your 2 years, not in any database or that can be queried with an API. So if you can open source that data and let tech companies come up with some kind of um, you know uh, I don't want to use a catch-all phrase of AI or Gen AI solution because that's a fashion, that's the cool thing to say. But some tech solution which looks at past data, processes it, and say that there is a high likelihood of this kind of fraud to happen next,
Great.
right? It may be 70-80% accurate, but that's better than zero.
That's good enough. That's fine.
So that's my
Good.
limited outsider, completely uninformed kind of a response to that question.
No, that's a fair. I think that's what is needed. Probably we need to have some child thoughts, I say. Sometimes the child thoughts are very simple, which we don't think, only the children can think. My last question to you today is like our regulator has come up with a big statement like by 2047 we want entire India insured. Okay, so it's a nice statement to have. It's like a global statement, "Garibi hata do" types. But then, if we want to really achieve it, if as an insurance industry or the support systems like yours, if everybody has to do something, so, what do you think would be the simple steps to start achieving this and say, okay, by 2047 karna hai, so we want these baby steps to be done. So, how do you think we can move towards that? Or what is the future of insurance, we can say? That's my last question to you.
uh, Again, I would hesitate to pretend to understand anything about the industry, especially speaking with somebody like you. But let me respond to that as a consumer, going back to my first principles of think of the customer first, right?
Yes.
I think insurance has always been sold on fear.
Mhm.
And therefore, it has always been one of those things that you really don't want to engage with, or you engage with only in bad times, right? I think if you're able to change that narrative for the consumer, position insurance as protecting you from unwanted events rather than selling fear or selling confidence, maybe that's the first step, right? Um, Sorry, I can't get into too much detail in terms of the
Very fair,
how
fair.
and stuff like that, but that's my as a consumer that's what I would feel. I mean, everybody is selling me an insurance policy. अगर तू मर गया तो तेरी बीवी के क्या होगा? या तो अगर तेरा हार्ट अटैक हो गया तो तेरा पगार का क्या होगा? Simple,
The
yeah. I
fair
mean,
way. So, as a customer, that means it's not engaging you.
I
This
don't want to
talk is not
engage.
engaging
I
you.
don't even want to engage with insurance,
Okay.
right? I'm not
That,
even
that's a,
thinking
that's a
about the
big thing.
pain of. I don't even want to get into things like the pain of the process of claiming insurance. That's a different ballgame altogether. Fundamentally, the mind space that insurance has in my mind is
Right.
nuisance avoidance.
Good. So I'll conclude by saying a joke on this. So we say insurance agent is the only lucky man on earth who has the privilege of talking to my wife separately and saying the benefits of my death to her.
Good one. Good
So
one.
anyway, it was nice talking to Srikanth. I think even the last point, though you may have said it in a very one-liner thing, but that's a perspective, and that is not actually wrong because when I used to head rural business in my earlier organization, so I had traveled to Punjab locations, Haryana, and the farms and all, and I stayed there. And trust me, the people said, "Oh, मरने से क्या फर्क पड़ता है? मरना तो सबको है." So the insurance was not a problem because they said, "Anyway, I have to die." And I am healthy. I have no problem. So I'm not going to die today. So there is a perspective probably which we are not listening to. And that is why the sunrise industry in 2001 is still the 2000 still a sunrise industry in 2025, where we still say the penetration level has not crossed 5%. Maybe there is a thing which we are not listening to, the customer. And maybe that's something I take as a forefront saying that whatever we have done till now, we'll have to do something different if we really want to reach the 247, 2047
100%.
levels, maybe. And
100%.
excellence will come in different ways. And this is also a small excellence step, maybe changing the way we sell insurance. Thanks for your very great value added in the thing, information and time. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Srikanth. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot of things also. And it adds value to the book in any ways.
I learned a lot
Thank
from
you.
you as well, Dinesh. Thank you so much for having me on your chat. Thank you so much. Take care. All the best
Thank
with the
you.
book.
Bye. Good day. See you.
And let
Thanks.
me know. Uh, I'm I'm a sales guy, so I'm always going to extract value from this conversation. I want a signed autograph copy of your book.
That's good, sir. You will.
All the
Very soon.
best. Take care.
I'm planning to launch it in the next 2 months. So hopefully now we're on the end of the interviews. So I need to collate because to be honest, in fact, I'm on a recorded line. I'd like to confess to you. When I started the book, I had something in mind. Okay. It of course every book writer goes through change, but then after talking to so many people, my perspective in a different way, I said, okay, it can go in this direction. And today also when I spoke, my book is going to have a different ending or a different change. So I had to stop somewhere, or else my book will never get published. It's
All
a
the very
great
best.
thing,
Yeah.
and yeah, thanks a lot. It's a great
Godspeed.
perspective. Bye. Bye. Good day.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.